thing about darkness is that it has a smell. People don't think about that. They think darkness is just the absence of light, something your eyes deal with and nothing more. But when you've spent 6 hours crawling through a tunnel so narrow your shoulders scrape both walls at once, you learn that darkness has a smell. It smells like wet clay and rotten bamboo roots and something else, something metallic and sweet that I didn't understand at first. I understand it now. I've understood it for 53 years. That smell. God, that smell. It was death. Not fresh death, not the kind you see in movies where someone falls down and that's it. No, this was old death, layered death, death that had been composting in those tunnels for months, maybe years. 217 bodies. That's what the official report said. I know because I counted them myself. Not with my eyes in that darkness, but with my hands, with my knees, with my face sometimes when the tunnel got so tight I had to turn sideways and push myself forward with my toes. I'm 81 years old now. I've got grandchildren who ask me what I did in the war, and I tell them I was a soldier. That's all I say. A soldier. What am I supposed to tell them? That their grandfather spent 6 hours in hell, in a hand-dug grave filled with corpses, armed with nothing but a flashlight, a pistol, and a knife, that I can still feel the texture of a dead man's face against my palm when I close my eyes? No. Some things you take to the grave. But I'm old now, and the grave is getting close, and I think maybe it's time someone knew the truth. Not the sanitized version, the real thing. I was 19 years old when I became a tunnel rat. 19. I look at my grandson now. He's 22, works at some tech company, worries about his stock options or whatever. At his age, I was volunteering to crawl into holes in the ground where men waited to kill me. What the hell was I thinking? That's the thing, though. I wasn't thinking. None of us were. We were just doing, day after day, tunnel after tunnel, until it became normal, until the abnormal became the only thing that made sense. Let me back up. I need to tell you how I got there, how a skinny kid from Terre Haute, Indiana, ended up becoming one of the most specialized killers in the Vietnam War. Because that's what we were. Tunnel rats. Killers. Not soldiers in the traditional sense, not the guys you see in the movies running across fields with rifles. We were something else entirely. We were the guys they sent in when everyone else was too scared. We were the ones who went where even the bravest men refused to go. I enlisted in '66. Stupid reason, really. My girlfriend at the time, Linda was her name. She broke up with me for some guy who drove a Corvette. I was devastated. You know how it is when you're 18 and you think some girl is your whole world. My father had been in Korea. I never talked about it much, but there was this photo of him in his uniform on the mantle. He looked so proud in that photo, so I figured, hell, if Linda doesn't want me, maybe the Army will. Basic training was at Fort Polk, Louisiana. They called it Tigerland because they were training us specifically for Vietnam. The heat was ungodly. I remember thinking this must be what hell feels like. Turns out I had no idea. The Louisiana heat was a cool breeze compared to what was waiting for me. I was small, 5'6", 135 pounds soaking wet. In most contexts, that would be a disadvantage. In the Army, in Vietnam, and the tunnels of Cu Chi, it was the only reason I survived. See, the Viet Cong, they dug these tunnel systems, right? Miles and miles of them. stretching all the way from the Cambodian border to the outskirts of Saigon. And they dug them small, real small, built for Vietnamese bodies, which averaged maybe 5'2", 110 pounds. American soldiers, your average corn-fed Midwestern boys, they couldn't fit. Their shoulders would get stuck. Their hips would wedge. They'd panic, and in those tunnels, panic meant death. But me, I fit. Just barely, but I fit. And someone noticed. It was a sergeant named Patterson, black guy from Chicago, built like a truck. Meanest eyes I ever saw, but fair. He pulled me aside one day after we cleared a village and found a tunnel entrance. Everyone was standing around it, looking down into this dark hole. Nobody wanted to go in. Patterson looked at me, looked at the hole, looked back at me. "Well," he said, "you're about the right size." That's how it started. No formal training, no manual, no protocol. Just, you're the right size, here's a flashlight and a pistol. Go see what's down there. The first tunnel I went into was empty. Just a short passage, maybe 20 feet, leading to a small chamber with some rice and ammunition. I came out shaking so bad I could barely stand. Patterson slapped me on the back, said good work, and that was that. I was officially a tunnel rat. You want to know what the equipment was? I'll tell you. A flashlight. The standard Army issue kind, bulky, unreliable. Batteries that died at the worst possible moment. A pistol. Usually a .45, though later I switched to a smaller caliber because the noise in those confined spaces would blow out your eardrums. A knife. That's it. No radio, no backup, no air support. Just you in the dark and whatever was waiting down there. The pistol was almost useless, by the way. You might think, well, at least you had a gun. But try firing a .45 caliber pistol in a space 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall. The muzzle flash blinds you. The noise is so loud it feels like someone detonated a bomb inside your skull. And the smoke, God, the smoke. Nowhere for it to go. You fire one round and suddenly you can't see, can't hear, can't breathe. So the knife became my best friend. A Ka-bar with a 7-inch blade. I slept with that knife. I ate with that knife. I killed with that knife. The tunnels of Ku Chai. Let me tell you about them. You've probably seen documentaries, maybe even visited as a tourist. They widen the tunnels now for tourists. Did you know that? The original tunnels, the real ones, were much smaller. Some passages were so narrow you had to exhale completely just to squeeze through. And they weren't just tunnels. They were cities. Underground cities with hospitals, kitchens, sleeping quarters, command centers, ammunition depots. The Viet Cong would disappear into the ground and we'd have no idea where they went. They'd pop up behind us, hit us, then vanish again. It drove our commanders crazy. That's why they needed us. The tunnel rats, we were the only way to fight them in their own domain. I remember my first real encounter. It was maybe my 5th or 6th tunnel. I was starting to feel like I knew what I was doing, which was stupid. Arrogance in those tunnels got you killed faster than anything. I was about 50 feet in, crawling on my belly, flashlight in my left hand, pistol in my right. The tunnel curved, which was common. They never dug straight lines because straight lines meant a grenade could roll all the way to the end. Curves, turns, trapdoors, false floors. Every few feet was a potential death trap. I came around a curve and my flashlight caught something. Eyes, human eyes reflecting the light, maybe 6 feet ahead of me. For a moment, neither of us moved. I don't know how long, probably half a second, but it felt like an hour. Then he moved, and I fired. The noise. Jesus Christ, the noise. It's been 53 years, and I can still hear it. That confined space turning my pistol shot into a cannon blast. I couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything. Just this ringing, this high-pitched whine that seemed to come from inside my head. I dropped the flashlight, grabbed my knife, pushed forward through the smoke. My hand touched something warm. A body. His body. I'd hit him in the throat, but he was still alive. I could feel his blood pumping out onto my hand, could feel his body twitching, and I could feel his hands grabbing at me, trying to fight, trying to survive, so I used the knife. I finished it. In the dark, covered in his blood, I did what I had to do. I lay there for a long time after. Couldn't move, couldn't think, just lay there in the dark with a dead man, breathing in the smell of gunpowder and copper. That's when I understood what I had become. Not a soldier. Something else. Something that belonged in the dark. But that was just the beginning. Let me tell you about the day they sent me to Tunnel Complex B7. The day I spent 6 hours underground. The day I found 217 bodies. It was March of '68. The Tet Offensive had happened just a few weeks earlier, and everyone was on edge. We'd been told the war was almost over, that we were winning, and then suddenly every city in South Vietnam was under attack. It was a mindfuck, pardon my language. Everything we thought we knew was wrong. Our company was operating near Chu Chi, right in the heart of tunnel country. Intelligence said there was a major tunnel complex nearby, possibly a regional command center. They wanted it found, mapped, and cleared. They wanted me. I had a reputation by then. The other soldiers called me the Mole. Some of them meant it as a compliment. Others, I think, were just trying to make sense of what I did. How could anyone volunteer for that, they wondered. What's wrong with him? The truth was, I didn't know anymore. The tunnels had become my world. Up above in the sunlight, I felt exposed, vulnerable. Down below in the dark, I felt like I had some control. Isn't that funny? The most dangerous place imaginable, and it was the only place I felt safe. They found the entrance in a farmer's hut. Underneath his cooking fire, if you can believe that. The man himself was long gone, probably warned by the VC. I looked at that hole, maybe 2 feet across, smoke still rising from the dead fire around it, and I knew this was different. Something about it felt wrong. The other tunnel rats felt it too. There were 3 of us by then, me and 2 others, a guy from Texas named Reeves, and a Filipino kid from California named Santos. And we looked at each other, and nobody said anything, but we all knew. I went first. That was the protocol. Most experience goes first. I tied a rope around my ankles so they could pull me out if something went wrong, although we all knew that if something went wrong deep enough in, no rope would save me. I took my flashlight, my pistol, my knife, and I dropped into the darkness. The first chamber was about 6 feet across, dome ceiling, dirt walls reinforced with bamboo. Pretty standard. But there were 3 passages leading out of it, which was unusual. Most tunnel entrances had 1 passage. This had 3. That meant this was a hub, a central point. That meant this was big. I picked the passage on the left. No reason, just instinct. I wish I'd picked different. The passage sloped downward. That was the first bad sign. The VC dug their tunnels on multiple levels, with the deepest levels reserved for the most important things: hospitals, command centers, ammunition stores. The deeper you went, the more danger you were in. This passage just kept going down. I don't know how long I crawled. Time doesn't work the same underground. There's no light to mark the passing hours, no sounds except your own breathing and the scrape of your body against the clay. I counted in my head, tried to estimate distance. 50 feet, 100 feet, 200. The passage narrowed. Then it narrowed again. Then it got so tight I had to take off my pistol belt just to squeeze through. That's when I smelled it. That smell I mentioned at the beginning. Death. Old death. Strong enough to make me gag. Strong enough that I stopped and just breathed through my mouth for a minute, trying not to vomit, because if I vomited in a space that tight, I'd probably drown in it. I should have turned back. I know that now. I knew it then too, but there was something about those tunnels, something that got inside your head. You had to know. You had to see what was at the end. It was like the darkness was pulling you forward, whispering to you, "Come see. Come see what we've got." The passage opened into a chamber, and I saw bodies everywhere, stacked like cordwood against the walls, lying in rows on the floor, piled in the corners. The smell was so thick, it was almost solid, like a wall you had to push through. My flashlight beam moved from face to face, and I saw that they weren't soldiers. They were civilians, men, women, children. Some of them were in the clothes they would have worn to market. Some of them were in sleeping clothes. Some of them were naked. I don't know how long I stayed in that chamber. Might have been minutes, might have been an hour. I counted the bodies, I don't know why. It seemed important. 217. That was the number I came up with. Later, when the Army sent a team to excavate, they confirmed it. 217 civilians killed by the Viet Cong. You're probably wondering why. I wondered too. Still do sometimes. Best guess is that they were villagers suspected of collaborating with Americans. The VC had a policy for that. If they thought you were helping the enemy, they killed you. Not just you, your whole family, your whole village sometimes. Pour encourager les autres, as the French say, to encourage the others. But that's just a guess. I don't know for certain. I never will. All I know is what I saw. All I know is that smell. I should have left then. I should have turned around and crawled out and told them what I found, but I didn't. Because beyond that chamber, the tunnel continued, and I could hear something. Voices. Faint, distant, but definitely voices. Someone was alive down there. I went forward, past the bodies, past the smell, into another passage. This one was even narrower than before. My shoulders scraped both walls, my chest scraped the floor, and my back scraped the ceiling. I couldn't turn around anymore. If something went wrong, my only way out was forward. The voices got louder. I could tell they were speaking Vietnamese, but I couldn't make out the words. I turned off my flashlight. Total darkness, the kind where you can't see your hand in front of your face. I just lay there, listening, trying to figure out how many of them there were. My estimate was 3, maybe 4. I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to do it, but I knew. I pushed forward in the darkness, using my hands to feel the walls. The passage curved. The voices were right ahead now, just around the bend. I could see a faint glow. Probably a candle or an oil lamp. I gripped my knife. I turned the corner. There were 3 of them. VC soldiers, from the look of their uniforms. They were huddled around a small lamp, eating rice from metal bowls. They didn't see me at first. The darkness behind me was too complete, and their eyes were adjusted to the light. I moved. I don't want to describe what happened next. I've described it too many times already. In my nightmares, in the dark hours before dawn when sleep won't come. 3 men, my knife, 30 seconds, maybe less. When it was over, I was covered in blood, and the only sound was my own breathing. I sat there for a while, maybe a long while. I don't know. I was shaking so bad my teeth were chattering. Not from fear, not exactly. Something else. Something deeper. My body was reacting to what I had done, what I had become. Eventually, I took their lamp and started exploring. The tunnel complex went on forever. More chambers, more passages, more levels. I found a hospital with operating tables made from bamboo. I found a kitchen with pots that still had rice in them. I found a command center with maps on the walls, maps of American positions. I marked it all in my head, memorized everything I could, and I found more bodies. Not dead ones this time, living ones. In a small chamber near the lowest level, I found a group of women and children, maybe 15 of them, huddled together in the dark. When I came around the corner with my flashlight, they screamed. For a moment, I just stood there, covered in blood, holding a knife, looking like something out of a nightmare. They thought I was going to kill them. I could see it in their eyes. And the thing is, for a second, just a second, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. That's the part that haunts me most. Not that I was afraid, but that I had to stop and think about it. What does that say about what I had become? I put down my knife. I put down my flashlight. I raised my hands, trying to show them I wasn't a threat. The children were crying. The women were praying, I think. I just stood there, hands up, saying, okay, okay, like somehow they would understand English. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Eventually, I picked up my flashlight and my knife, and I backed away. I left them there. What else could I do? They were civilians, non-combatants. Whatever rules of war we were supposed to follow, they applied to them. Getting out took hours. The tunnel complex was a maze, and I was disoriented from everything that had happened. Twice I hit dead ends and had to backtrack. Once I got stuck in a narrow passage and had to spend 10 minutes wiggling free. The whole time, I kept thinking about those women and children in the dark. I kept thinking about the 217 bodies. I kept thinking about the 3 men I had killed. When I finally emerged, it was night. I didn't even know what time it was. Reeves and Santos were still there, along with a whole company of infantry. They'd been about to send someone in after me. I was underground for 6 hours. It felt like 6 years. They gave me a medal for that. A bronze star with a V for valor. I've still got it somewhere, in a box in the attic. I never look at it. The citation talks about destroying an enemy command center and gathering valuable intelligence. It doesn't mention the 217 bodies. It doesn't mention the 3 men I killed with the knife. It doesn't mention the women and children I left in the dark. That's the thing about war. The official story is never the real story. The real story is too ugly, too complicated, too human. So they give you a medal, and they tell you you're a hero and nobody ever talks about the rest. I did 31 more tunnels after that, 31 more descents into the darkness, but nothing was ever quite as bad as B7. Nothing could be. That tunnel took something from me that I never got back. Maybe that's what real trauma is. Not the memory of what happened, but the absence of what was lost. I came home in '69, flew into Oakland, California, just like everybody else. You've probably heard the stories about how soldiers were treated when they came back from Vietnam. Some of them are true. Nobody spit on me, but nobody thanked me either. I walked through that airport in my uniform, and people looked through me like I wasn't there, like I was a ghost. Maybe I was, in a way. The kid who went to Vietnam in '66, he didn't come back. Someone else came back in his body, but it wasn't him. I didn't talk about it for 40 years, not to my wife, not to my kids, not to anyone. I'd have nightmares, and my wife would ask me what was wrong, and I'd say nothing. Just a bad dream. I'd smell something that reminded me of the tunnels, that wet clay and bamboo smell, and I'd have to leave the room so nobody would see me shaking. I'd see a hole in the ground, a basement, a crawl space, and my heart would start pounding so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. The guilt was the worst part. Not guilt for the men I killed. They were enemy soldiers. They would have killed me if they could. I made my peace with that a long time ago. No, the guilt was for the ones I couldn't save. The 217. The women and children I left in that chamber. I've spent 50 years wondering what happened to them. Did they make it out? Did they starve down there? Did someone else find them? Someone who wasn't as hesitant as I was? I'll never know. That's another thing about war they don't tell you. The unanswered questions are worse than the memories. At least with memories, you know how the story ends. With questions, you're stuck in the darkness forever, wondering. I finally started talking about it in 2009. My wife was dying cancer, and she told me she wanted to know. 40 years of marriage, she said, and I never told her what happened over there. She deserved to know. So I told her, not all of it, but enough. I told her about the tunnels, about the darkness, about the smell. I told her about the 217 bodies. I told her about the women and children. She held my hand and she cried, and she said she was sorry. Sorry that I had to carry that alone for so long. She died 3 weeks later, but at least she knew. After that, I started talking to other people. Other veterans at first, guys who understood. Then a therapist at the VA. Then my kids. Then my grandkids. The older ones anyway. And now you. Whoever you are. Whoever is listening to this old man ramble, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for forgiveness. I did what I did, and I've made my peace with it as much as anyone can. I'm just looking for someone to remember. Not me, specifically. I don't need anyone to remember my name, but those 217 people, they were someone's parents, someone's children, someone's friends. They died in the dark, in a hole in the ground, and nobody knows their names. Nobody knows their stories. They're just a number in an official report that nobody reads anymore. So I remember them. Every day I remember them. It's the least I can do. You know what the strangest part is? After everything I've told you, after the bodies and the killing and the darkness, the thing I remember most clearly is the silence. Those tunnels were so quiet, you could hear your own heartbeat, your own blood moving through your veins. You could hear the earth itself. settling and shifting around you. It was peaceful in a way. Terrible, but peaceful.